What does it take to rebuild a nation on the edge of collapse? Imagine waking up one morning to a country that feels beyond saving. Your economy is shattered. Your people are starving. Your cities feel more like ruins than homes. And every day rumors whisper the same fear. This nation won't survive another year. Most leaders in moments like this fail. Some flee. Some tighten their grip in desperation. Some pretend things aren't falling apart. But every once in a while, once in a generation, someone does the unimaginable. They walk into the ashes. They pick up the pieces everyone else has abandoned. And somehow, they rebuild. Today we explore one of those rare individuals. A leader who took a broken nation, fractured by war, poverty, and despair, and transformed it into a thriving, unified power. But this isn't just a history lesson. This is a story about human nature, about why nations fail, how leaders rise, and why some rebuild what others would simply let burn. A nation on the brink. 1. The collapse. The nation he inherited was, by every measure, dying. The treasury was empty, so empty that government workers hadn't been paid in months. Inflation devoured savings like a silent wildfire. The army, once a proud institution, was fractured into rival factions. Foreign powers circled like vultures, waiting to seize territory or influence. And ordinary citizens? They had lost something even more important than wealth or stability. They had lost faith. Faith in institutions, faith in their future, faith in each other. A nation doesn't collapse when the last soldier deserts or the last coin disappears. A nation collapses when hope runs out. He understood this better than anyone. 2. The arrival of an unlikely leader. He did not come from wealth. He was not the most charismatic or the most celebrated. He wasn't even the first choice among the country's elites. But he had something more powerful than a glamorous resume. He had a reputation for competence. Competence is rare. Competence under pressure is even rarer. And competence when a nation is in ruins? That's almost miraculous. He entered office not with cheers, but with skepticism. People didn't expect a savior, just someone who wouldn't make things worse. But behind his calm demeanor was a mind shaped by relentless discipline, a deep understanding of people, and an obsession with the long-term fate of the nation. He believed something radical. A nation is rebuilt not through force, but through trust. 3. Step 1. Restore order. To rebuild anything, whether a nation, a relationship, or a life, first you need stability. That became his first mission. But order did not mean repression. Order meant predictability. It meant rules mattered again. It meant the government kept its word. He reorganized local governance. He consolidated scattered power centers. He reduced corruption by making officials accountable to measurable outcomes rather than personal connections. For the first time in years, the mechanisms of the state began to function again, slowly, imperfectly, but undeniably. People once again saw cause and effect. They saw that their actions mattered. They saw that the system responded. Where there is order, hope begins. 4. Step 2. Rebuild the economy. Next came the hardest part, restoring livelihoods. Factories stood idle. Farms produced barely enough to feed their own families. Merchants had no goods to sell. Meanwhile, inflation continued its relentless erosion of trust. He understood a simple truth. People don't follow leaders who only speak. They follow leaders who deliver. So he delivered. He implemented reforms that prioritized agricultural recovery, fair taxation, infrastructure repair, and incentives for small businesses. He reopened trade routes and negotiated deals that restored the nation's access to essential goods. You might say, but all leaders promise this. True, but he did something most leaders don't. He paired short-term relief with long-term strategy. Food distribution was reorganized. Land disputes were resolved quickly. Farmers received seeds and tools instead of speeches. Merchants received safe roads instead of slogans. Slowly, confidence returned. The currency stabilized, people began to invest, produce, and build. The nation was still fragile, but no longer dying. 5. Step 3. Unite the people. A nation is not rebuilt by laws alone. It is rebuilt by hearts and minds. He understood that a divided nation cannot grow, it can only bleed. Years of conflict had turned neighbor against neighbor, region against region, class against class. So he became more than a statesman. He became a healer. He traveled across the country, not giving grand speeches, but listening. He invited leaders of rival factions to negotiate, not as enemies, but as stakeholders. He replaced the narrative of blame with a narrative of shared destiny. People didn't suddenly love each other, but they began to tolerate each other, then respect each other, and eventually work together. Unity is not a feeling, it is a practice, a daily act of choosing the whole over the part. His genius was making unity practical, not poetic. 6. Step 4. Invest in the future. Some leaders focus on survival. He focused on rebirth. Once stability was established, he turned his attention to what truly transforms a nation: education, infrastructure, institutions, and innovation. He expanded schools and standardized curricula. He built roads that connected rural communities to markets. He strengthened judicial systems that protected property and contracts. This wasn't flashy, it wasn't dramatic, but it built the foundation for something nations rarely achieve: resilience. The ability to withstand crises, the ability to grow without collapsing, the ability to evolve rather than decay. He was building not just a government, but a culture. 7. The leader behind the legend. Who was he really? He was a paradox: strict yet compassionate, reserved yet deeply empathetic, pragmatic yet driven by principles. What made him extraordinary was not charisma, but character. He lived with a quiet conviction: a leader's true power is earned, not taken. He refused lavish displays of wealth. He punished corrupt officials, even when they were former allies. He rewarded competence over loyalty. He made decisions that were unpopular but necessary. People began to see him as something rare, a leader they could trust. Trust is the currency of leadership, and he accumulated it through transparency, consistency, and courage. 8. The turning point. Every nation that rises experiences a moment, a single event, where its people collectively realize we are no longer broken. For his nation, that moment came unexpectedly. A natural disaster struck, a massive flood that wiped out farms, roads, and homes. It could have plunged the country back into chaos. But something remarkable happened instead. The government responded with efficiency. Communities helped each other without waiting for orders. Volunteers traveled across the country to assist strangers. Reconstruction began immediately, coordinated and united. That was the moment people looked around and realized: this is a nation reborn. This is who we are now. This is what we've become. His reforms had not just strengthened systems, they had strengthened the people themselves. 9. The legacy. His leadership transformed a failing state into a stable, prosperous, and respected nation. But his legacy is not just measured in numbers: literacy rates, GDP, exports, infrastructure. His legacy is measured in something deeper: the return of dignity. Citizens once ashamed of their country now wore its flag with pride. Children once destined for poverty now dreamed of careers, education, and opportunity. Farmers once struggling to survive became part of a national engine of growth. He didn't just rebuild a nation, he reshaped its identity. What does it take to rebuild a broken nation or a broken life? Now pause, because this story is not only about a historical leader, it's about you, me, all of us. We often think nations rise through grand speeches or heroic battles. But nations rise the same way people rise: by restoring order to chaos, by rebuilding trust, by focusing on long-term growth, by choosing unity over division, and by believing change is possible, even when everything looks hopeless. So ask yourself, what could you rebuild if you approached your life the way he approached his nation? If you restored order to your days? If you strengthened your foundations? If you united the divided parts of yourself, your fears, your goals, your doubts, your hopes? If you invested in your future instead of clinging to your past? Nations rise and fall through human nature. So do individuals. What part of your life is waiting to be rebuilt? And what would you become if you started today? Rebuilding is not magic. It's method. His story is not a legend. It is a blueprint. Nations fail for the same reasons people do: neglect, division, corruption, short-term thinking, loss of purpose. But they rise through discipline, integrity, unity, vision, and hope. We often underestimate what slow, steady rebuilding can achieve. You don't transform a nation overnight. You don't transform a life overnight. But every day, with every decision, you lay bricks. Bricks of character, bricks of trust, bricks of discipline, bricks of purpose. And one day, you look up and realize you've built something worth protecting. His story teaches us a final lesson. Rebuilding begins long before others notice. It begins in silence, in struggle, and in the choices no one sees. Because the real power to rebuild a nation, a community, a life, does not come from authority. It comes from belief. Belief in a future not yet visible. Belief in the people around you. Belief in yourself. That is how one leader rebuilt a broken nation, and that is how you rebuild anything. Subscribe Timeless Questions channel for more thought-provoking stories about philosophy, history, and the unseen forces shaping our world.